From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day, this is Dateline Malacañang, and here are the news. On the top story, Malacañang said the government has begun rolling out the 20 pesos per kilogram rice in public markets nationwide, following Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.'s launch of the Benteng Bigas Meron Na program in Bacoor, Cavite. Philippine Presidential Communications Office, PCO, Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the initiative is entering a wider rollout phase to benefit more low-income families.
Benteng bigas, mayroon na sa palengke. Alinsunod ito sa pangako ng Pangulo na palawakin pa ang sakop ng 20 pesos rice program ng administrasyon. Diin ang Pangulo, hangad ng gobyerno na magkaroon ng sapat na pagkain sa hapagkainan ng bawat Pilipino. Mula noong nagsimula ang 20 pesos rice rollout noong Mayo, nakakabili na ng mura at dekalidad na bigas ang mga senior citizen, solo parents, PWDs at mga miyembro ng 4Ps. Ngayon naman ay sisimula na ang rice rollout sa mga public market para mas marami pang kababayan natin ang makinabang dito. Upang mapanatag ang ating mga magsasaka, siniguro ng Pangulo na hindi bababa ang kanilang kita dahil may pondo ang gobyerno para dito. Pinapalakas din ng 20 pesos rice program ang suporta sa partner farmers dahil pwede nang direktang magbenta sa merkado. Wala nang middlemen at mababawasan pa ang kanilang post-harvest losses. Inatasan naman ng Pangulo ang mga ahensya ng gobyerno na palawigin, patatagin at palawakin pa ang sakop ng 20 pesos rice program. Itutuloy ng DA ang nasimulan na ugnayan sa mga LGU para mas marami pang palengke ang makapagbenta ng dekalidad at abot-kayang bigas. Magbibigay naman ang DSWD ng listahan ng mga lugar kung saan maraming kababayan natin ang makikinabang sa rice rollout, lalo na ang vulnerable sectors. Sisiguruhin naman ng DILG na maayos ang pagsumite ng accomplishment reports ng mga LGU ukol sa pagpapatupad ng programa.
The President on Wednesday led officials of the Department of Agriculture or DA and National Food Authority or NFA in launching the program in Zapote Public Market in Bacoor, Cavite. It marks a major expansion of the 20 pesos rice initiative originally intended for pilot testing in the Visayas in May. According to DA's Agribusiness and Marketing Assistance Service, the program has already reached over 105,000 families in Luzon and the Visayas, distributing more than 804,000 kilos of rice between May 13 and June 30. The 20 pesos rice is currently available to senior citizens, solo parents, persons with disabilities, indigent families, and minimum wage earners, with 1 million targeted beneficiaries by year-end. The goal is to reach 15 million Filipinos nationwide by 2026 and sustain the program through 2028. The program also supports local farmers by reinvesting NFA procurement budgets into rural economies while helping decongest government rice warehouses. To date, 94 outlet sites have been established across the country.
Dateline Malacañang.
In related news, the Philippines Department of Agriculture or DA said the Benteng Bigas Meron Na or BBM Na is now available in 94 locations across the country. The BBM Na refers to the sale of 20 pesos per kilogram of aging but good quality rice stocks of National Food Authority or NFA for the members of the vulnerable sector and minimum wage earners. As of June 23, about 542.18 metric tons worth 10.83 million pesos have been sold, benefiting 63,473 households by the Kadiwa ng Pangulo or KNP and other accredited sites. This includes the launch of the BBM Na KNP site at the Zapote Public Market in Bacoor, Cavite on Wednesday, or Wednesday morning, led by Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. KNP outlets, pop-up stores, and partner retailers are now operating in Metro Manila, Central Luzon, which includes Aurora, Bulacan, and Nueva Ecija, Calabarzon, comprising of Cavite, Laguna, Rizal, Quezon, Oriental and Occidental Mindoro, Pangasinan, Bacolod, Siquijor, and 37 sites in Cebu. Besides this, at least 34 companies joined the BBM sale under the DA partnership with the Department of Labor and Employment or DOLE for minimum wage earners. In a press briefing, Department of Agriculture or DA spokesperson Assistant Secretary Arnel de Mesa said, for the DOLE's minimum wage earners, their total sales is at 2 pesos or rather 2.8 million pesos. In total, the DOLE aims to sell 20 pesos per kilogram rice to 120,000 minimum wage earners nationwide.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang said Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has ordered a thorough investigation into the disappearance of sabongeros or cockfight aficionados to hold accountable the people behind the alleged abduction and killing of the victims. Presidential Communications Office or PCO Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the Department of Justice has to verify the testimonies of and evidence from the witnesses. She said the witnesses' claims must be supported with substantial evidence such as photos and videos to shed light on the reported disappearance of the victims. Castro said the government is also expecting a fair probe, even as some influential personalities were implicated.
Pagpatuloy po ang pag-iimbestiga ng malalimang pag-iimbestiga para malaman kung sino ba talaga ang sangkot dito at mapanagot ang dapat mapanagot. Ayon nga rin po sa DOJ ay meron pong 4 na witnesses na maaaring tumulong pero kailangan pa nilang i-evaluate ang mga testimony nila para malaman kung sino yung pwede maging state witness. At kailangan po talaga nila ng maliban sa testimonya ay magkaroon pa ng ibang mga ebidensya tulad ng mga larawan, pictures, videos kung meron man para mas makatulong po sa pagresolba ng kasong ito. Naniniwala po tayo sa integridad ng ating korte at ito'y masisolusyonan na naaayon sa batas at naaayon sa rule of law.
One of the suspects, identified as alias Totoy, earlier tagged several police officers and a showbiz personality in the case of over 100 missing sabongeros. The whistleblower claimed that the bodies of the victims were dumped in Taal Lake in Batangas province. The DOJ revealed on June 26 that the mastermind in the abduction killing of sabongeros is part of a group of around 20 individuals, including some government officials and police officials who have adopted a corporate setup in running the billion-peso industry. It also warned that the powerful group could influence the courts, even the Supreme Court.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Wednesday said Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is not opposed to the implementation of the K-12 program but wants to improve the curriculum. Presidential Communications Office, PCO Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said President Marcos, however, acknowledged the lack of preparedness in implementing the education program. In his podcast aired last month, President Marcos expressed frustrations over the K-12 program and directed Education Secretary Sani Angara to strengthen the curriculum and address long-standing gaps in education infrastructure. Castro said the current administration would exhaust all efforts to strengthen the K-12 program.
Okay, gusto po natin liwanagin ito. Hindi po niya sinasabi na hindi natutol siya sa K-12. Ang sinabi lang po niya ay hindi naging epektibo agad dahil hindi na i-prepare ang mga ahensya para dito. At ngayon po, sa pamamagitan din po ni Secretary Angara, ini-improve po ito. Pero ayon po sa ating Pangulo, hanggat nandyan po ang batas para sa K-12, ito po ay susuportahan at palalawigin at pag-iibayuhin na maayos para sa ating mga estudyante. So hindi lang po siya tutol talaga sa K-12. Aayusin po ngayon. Pero kung ano po ang magiging batas, yun din po ang susundin. Pero sa ngayon na nandiyan po ang batas, Ito po ay bibigyan po ng halaga at palalawigin at pagagandahin pa po.
Senate President Pro Tempore Jingo Estrada earlier filed a bill seeking the removal of the senior high school or SHS level in the K-12 program, citing the criticism and objections from various groups. Angara said there are ongoing efforts to improve the SHS program with over 800 schools nationwide participating in the pilot run of the enhanced curriculum for grades 11 and 12 starting school year 2025 to 2026.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Wednesday said the Philippine government is prepared for the possible fallout of reciprocal tariffs that may be imposed by the United States or U.S. This as Presidential Communications Officer PCO Undersecretary and Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said negotiations between the Philippines and the U.S. are still underway to address the tariff issues amid the new trade policy under the Trump administration. Castro, however, refused to provide further details about the ongoing talks.
Sa ngayon po, sabi po ay ongoing pa rin ang negosasyon at hindi pa rin po kami makakapagbigay ng anumang detalye patungkol po dito. Pero asahan po natin kung ano man po ang magiging solusyon dito or rather resolution dito. Ito po ay para po sa kabubuti ng ating bayan. Ano't ano man po ang mangyari dito, kailangan po ang bansa ay handa. Kaya po ang Pangulo natin at ang economic team ay lagi pong pinag-aaralan ang mga patungkol dito.
The Philippines is still awaiting the U.S. decision on its plea to bring down the reciprocal tariff. The Philippines is eyeing a tariff relief after U.S. President Donald Trump imposed a 17% reciprocal tariff on Philippine exports, a rate currently paused but replaced by a blanket 10% tariff for 90 days. The 90-day pause on higher tariffs is expected to lapse on July 8. Trump, however, has expressed willingness to extend the July 8 deadline for completing trade talks before higher reciprocal rates take effect, according to a Reuters report on June 11.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo Cacdac expressed confidence that the appointment of new Foreign Affairs Secretary Maria Teresa Lazaro would further strengthen the government's efforts to protect the rights and welfare of millions of overseas Filipino workers, or OFWs, worldwide. During the virtual press briefing on Tuesday, Cacdac also expressed deep gratitude to former Foreign Affairs Chief Enrique Manalo for his steadfast and dedicated service to overseas Filipinos. Manalo was appointed by Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. as the Philippine Permanent Representative of the Philippines to the United Nations in New York. He will replace Ambassador Antonio Lagdameo, who is set to retire soon. Cacdac highlighted Manalo's key role in emergency repatriations and on-site aid for OFWs caught in conflicts like Sudan and the Middle East. He credited Manalo for boosting bilateral labor ties with the major host countries such as Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Kuwait, Oman, and Bahrain, in line with the president's push for ethical and safe labor mobility. Meanwhile, Cacdac cited Lazaro's long working history and extensive diplomatic experience, recalling her postings in France, Switzerland, and her leadership in ASEAN affairs. Cacdac emphasized that the strong coordination between the DFA and the DMW will continue under Lazaro's leadership, ensuring that OFWs receive prompt protection, assistance, as well as expanded opportunities overseas. Lazaro, a career diplomat with more than 4 decades of experience, was confirmed by the Commission on Appointments on June 11.
Dateline Malacañang.
74 overseas Filipino workers or OFWs from Israel are set to return to the country this week as the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWA assured continuous repatriation efforts despite the lowering of the alert level following a ceasefire in the region. In a Bagong Pilipinas interview on Wednesday, OWA Administrator Patricia Yvonne Kaunan said that while the Department of Foreign Affairs has downgraded the alert level in Israel to alert level 2, the government's monitoring and assistance remain in place for OFWs who wish to come home. Kaunan said that of the nearly 30,000 Filipinos working in Israel, 373 have expressed interest in returning home since June 23. However, only 26 have already been repatriated as Kaunan admits that there are those who opted to stay due to various reasons. She said that in case they finally decide to come home, the government is already ready to assist them. Kaunan added that, aside from Israel, OWA continues to receive inquiries from OFWs in other parts of the Middle East including Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Kuwait about possible repatriation and support programs. Beyond repatriation, Kaunan said over 440 OFWs in Israel have received assistance including psychosocial counseling, accommodation, food packs, and financial aid through the joint efforts of the Philippine Embassy in Tel Aviv, the Migrant Workers Office, labor attachés, and OWA welfare officers. Returning OFWs also receive medical help and referrals from the Department of Health, which covers expenses in certain cases and provides free treatment for those with serious illnesses like cancer. To help them start anew and reintegrate, the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority or TESDA is offering vouchers for upskilling while the Department of Labor and Employment and the Department of Migrant Workers assist them in job matching so they can find another job.
Dateline Malacañang.
The 6 Filipino seafarers stranded aboard an unseaworthy vessel in the Iloilo Strait for nearly 3 months have begun receiving their unpaid wages as the government moves to hold the vessel owner and manning agency accountable for the ordeal. Overseas Workers Welfare Administration or OWA Chief Patricia Yvonne Kaunan in an interview on Bagong Pilipinas on Wednesday said the seafarers, crew members of bulk carrier MV Herman Star, have finally returned to their families after enduring months without power, proper food, clean water, or salary aboard the vessel. Kaunan said OWA intervened between the seafarers, the vessel owner, and the manning agency for their conciliation agreement in terms of the payment of the unpaid wages. Kaunan said the rescue of the 6 Filipino seafarers was made possible with the help of the Philippine Coast Guard or PCG, the Bureau of Immigration, the Bureau of Customs, and Iloilo Lone District Representative Jam Baronda. The 6 rescued seafarers immediately received 100,000 pesos in financial aid through the DMW's Action Fund and OWA's Emergency Repatriation Fund as part of the government's expanded support for distressed overseas workers and seafarers as directed by Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. Meanwhile, Kaunan said the Philippine government also extended food aid and other assistance to 7 other Indian crew members who were also stranded with them. Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo Kakdak in an earlier interview said the agency would pursue administrative sanctions and hold the vessel owner and the manning agency accountable for the hardship the seafarers endured. The manning agency, Erica Crew Manning Services Incorporated, is already under suspension and could face license revocation. The ship arrived from Vietnam carrying bags of rice in August 2024 but remained docked after being found unseaworthy and lacking a valid trading certificate during an inspection by the PCG Port State Control. It changed crews twice. DMW Undersecretary Bernard Olalia said violations include failure to ensure the ship's seaworthiness, delayed payment of wages, and possible contract substitution. Moreover, he said the DMW is looking at the manning agency's failure to monitor its deployed seafarers, which was also a violation, and at the possible contract substitution.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, for Dateline Malacañang, the Philippines and Lithuania have reaffirmed their commitment to further deepen bilateral labor cooperation for better protection of overseas Filipino workers or OFWs and to open more job opportunities for job seekers in the Baltic state. In a news release, Migrant Workers Secretary Hans Leo Kakdak said Lithuanian Minister of National Defense His Excellency Dovil Skalyan discussed during a bilateral talk on Tuesday in Mandaluyong City the increasing demand for Filipino workers in key sectors, particularly in healthcare, maritime, transportation, construction, and food services. He said Skalyan reported that Lithuania is currently finalizing procedures to accommodate more Filipino workers, setting an annual labor quota of up to 25,000. The DMW said that for this year, 79 highly skilled workers or skilled Filipino workers have already been deployed to Lithuania under existing arrangements. Data from the Lithuania Migration Department states that as of January 1, 2025, a total of 774 Filipino citizens had a residence permit in Lithuania, up from 487 in 2024 and 244 in 2023. Skalyan, meanwhile, assured Kakdak of Lithuania's commitment to safeguard Filipino workers under Lithuanian laws, recognizing their contributions not only to the economy but also to national security and social development. Kakdak said a joint communique is currently under review with plans for high-level visits and continued dialogue in the coming months to finalize a formal labor agreement between the Philippines and Lithuania.
Dateline Malacañang.
And that is all for today's Dateline Malacañang for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. This has been Bea Gaza-de Guzman.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.